Getting your CDL license is not quite as easy as it used to be. So before you go out and get your CDL, there may be a trick to get you around it. When it comes to CDL requirements, there is a lot of information. So before you do anything, before you take my word for it, check your state's CDL requirement and federal requirement. Sometimes those overlap, sometimes there are some variations in that depending upon state. So you have to do your homework. What I'm going to tell you is just some things that I know. I do have a CDL license. I've had it for many years. I don't like having it because I really don't utilize it anymore. It does put me under some different requirements, even though that I don't use it. But if I were to let that go, and if I ever needed to obtain it again, it's a little harder to get than when I got it a long time ago. So the CDL requirements I'm looking at and talking about in this video apply to Texas. It may be different in your state. So if you don't live in Texas, you need to check out the rules, regs, and laws in your state. In Texas, really the biggest things is going to determine right away if you're going to be required to have a CDL is if you're over 26,000 pounds, combined vehicle weights. That's a GVWR of the truck and the GVWR of the trailer. Those two combined, if they're 26,001 pound greater, then you're going to be required to have a CDL if you're making money with it. So if you're not making any type of money, then you're not required to have a CDL, even if it weighs 27,000 pounds, but you will have to get a different license. You will have to get a Class A non-CDL. Some call it an exempt CDL. If you are making money, it don't matter if it's 1 penny or if you're making $1 million this year, if you're over that 26,000 pound, then you are required to have a CDL. So let's talk about personal use. So I've got a truck, I've got a dually pickup, and a big fifth wheel camper trailer that weighs 26,001 pound. Do I need a CDL? You do not need a CDL if you're just using that personally. You're not making any money, whether that be on YouTube or any type of, maybe, you know, as long as you're not using it for travel and work. It could get sticky on that, so make sure you're clear on it. So you do not have to have a CDL if you're at 26,001 pound strictly for personal use, but you will have to have a Class A or a Class B if you're a little smaller than that. If you're making any kind of money, so if your buddy pays you to bring your personal trailer, your personal truck, and your tractor to come and do some dirt work for him and pays you to do that, well, at that point, if you're 26,001 pound, you would be required to have a CDL because you are making money. Even though it's a small amount, you would be required to have a CDL in that. So some of the ways to get around that, this is one of the most common. This is one of the most common that I see companies use. And this is where it gets a little sticky for me, and really, it gets worrisome for me, and it surprises me that companies would try to do this. I understand the reason why they're trying to do it, because it's hard to get CDL drivers. So what they do is the first thing they do is they get the trailer derated. That is the best trick to bypass the CDL requirement. Get your trailer derated. Am I against trailer derating? Absolutely not, but I'm going to show you how it could get you in a pickle, and it would make you get in trouble down the road talking about the other guy you need to worry about towards the end of the video. So here we have a long deck over tandem axle gooseneck trailer running two 12K axles on this unit. So it's got 8 tires on the ground. I will tell you the length of this trailer, the width of this trailer, how many tires it's got on the ground, the size of the axles, the VIN sticker. None of that will require you to have a CDL unless you're using it to make money. Now let's say you are going to use it to make money, but you don't have a CDL. So what are you going to do? The GVW on this trailer is 25,000 pounds. So you could pull it with your bicycle and be under CDL. But if your bicycle is not capable of pulling it, you're going to have to pull it with a pickup. You're not going to be able to pull it with a 1-ton regardless and stay under CDL for the most part. It can be close, but let's just start with a 3/4 ton. We'll start with my 3/4 ton. So I have a 2022 GMC 3/4 ton, 8-foot bed. That GVW is at 10,850 pounds. Combined with this trailer at 25,000 pounds, you can see how that would immediately put me into a CDL class if I'm going to be making money off of it. If I'm not going to be making money, it would put me into a Class A non-CDL license. So regardless, I'm going to have to probably change my license from just a standard driver's license. So if I don't want to go CDL, I have a couple of options. My first option is not to make any money with it, just get the Class A non-CDL and be fine. But let's say that I have an opportunity to haul a few things and to make some money. So to pull this trailer, which I would not recommend because it's a huge trailer to be pulling with a 3/4 ton, would it pull it? Yes, but it's a big boy. Like I said, it's got two 12K tandem dual axles on it. What I would have to do is derate this trailer, and I could derate it. I would need to derate this trailer from 25,000 pounds down to 15,150 pounds. And that is perfectly legal to do. You can do that after the fact, or you can do it at the time of purchase. Now let's talk about that. If you do it after the fact, you can go to your local tag office here in Texas. You can have it derated to whatever you want it, and they're going to give you documentation. The problem is the VIN number is going to show something completely different than the new registration. What I see and from what I hear, that gets a little sticky. If you get pulled over by DOT, they're going to go off of the VIN number. If it says 25,000, even if you have a document holder up there and you have the new document saying you've had it derated, it may get into a sticky situation. You may receive a citation. You may have to go to court. You may get it waived, but it may cost you a little time on the side of the road. At the initial purchase of it, most manufacturers will give you a new derate sticker for that trailer. So it's going to be a new sticker that's got the legal VIN number, everything on it that's going to be derated to that lower number to make you perfectly legal to get underneath the CDL. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about buying a used trailer, or if you own a trailer and you're wanting to skirt the CDL. Make sure that you have all your ducks in a row with your VIN number and your new registration so that it's still not going to cost you. So let's say I decide to derate this trailer to 15,150 pounds. Perfectly legal. I can pull it with my truck. That gets me under CDL. Here's the thing. Now I've got to take the dry weight of this trailer off of that. It's going to be around 7,000 to 8,000 pounds. Which again, that's no problem. I take that off on paper, and when I take that off, that tells me how much I can legally haul. So depending on how I have my load, because when you position your load, you are using that rear axle in your truck, so it's not 100% accurate. You can move back and forth, but I'm only going to be able to haul between 6,500 and say 7,500 pounds of payload on this huge trailer. That's not much. Now, I will say, I knew somebody that used to haul a trailer like this that just hauled foam insulation for roofing panels that weighed, I think he weighed 4,800 pounds total weight capacity, so he could stay under CDL with this trailer. But for most of us, if we're making money, most loads are going to be more than that, especially if you're getting to the hotshot. And that's really where I see most of the people trying to go around the CDL, or you'll see these dealers that will promote, we have a non-CDL trailer, which is just a marketing ploy like we've talked about before. Yes, you may be non-CDL, but if you cannot haul any weight, any capacity on that trailer, is it really that useful to you? Do you want to buy a big 40-foot tandem dual trailer, or maybe it's a single tandem, maybe you've got two 10s on there and you can't haul anything? You know, somebody calls up for a load, say, hey, I've got a load but it weighs 12,000 pounds. Well, you can't haul it because you're going to be anywhere from 6,000 to 4,000 pounds overloaded, just depending on, you know, how heavy your trailer is empty. So you have to take that in consideration if you're making money. If you're thinking about getting into the hotshot business, you need to figure all this out before you go dump money into a truck and trailer, because if you can't use it, the hotshot business is tough already. Any of you hotshotters out there, chime in on the comments and tell me how hard it is right now. If you can't haul anything, then it's really not going to be beneficial to you. You're just going to need to go ahead and get the CDL so you can use the trailer for what you need to. So if you have a dually pickup, there's really nothing you're going to be able to haul behind that dually pickup unless it's like a 16-foot trailer or a 20-foot trailer that's going to be GVW'd, you know, maybe under 10,000 pounds, depending on the GVW of the dually pickup. You got to check your weight and what you're going to be doing with your unit. Are you making money, and are you over 26,001 pounds? You're going to need to get you a CDL, or you're going to need a derate. And again, nothing wrong with derate. Here's where the problem happens. Let's say this scenario, say that you've derated your trailer like this one. You've derated it down to 15,150 and you can haul 7,000 pounds on it legally. You're under CDL, but you're making money with it. You've brokered a load. You're getting paid to take this load from A to B, but this load that you started out with is 6,000 pounds, but they say, hey, on the way, I've got a small load I need you to pick up, and it weighs 5,000 pounds. That's gonna put you over. And what I mean by that, your weight capacity that you're allowed to haul, your payload capacity, is now overweight. Here's where you get in trouble. If you get pulled over and they decide to scale you, you're going to get an overweight ticket, likely going to get red tagged. You'll have to unhook from the trailer. You're going to get a ticket. It's going to cost you some money. May go on your driving record, may not. You may get a ticket for, not having the proper licensing. It's going to cost you a little money, but that's going to be the least of your worries. Here's where you would get in trouble. Say you're 5 pounds overloaded on this trailer. You don't have a CDL. You've derated the trailer, so you've went out of your way to try to stay under CDL because you don't want to get that CDL, and you're traveling overweight and you get into an accident. You get into an accident and you damage someone's property. You get into an accident or you hurt somebody, or even worse, you're going to get a ticket from DOT. Whatever state you're in, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to get some citations. But where you're going to get pounded is from a legal standpoint. A good lawyer, and I know that's subjective, but I say a qualified lawyer is going to come and they're going to check your driving history. They're going to see where, well, you are making a living with your trailer. You're a non-CDL operator because you've decided to skirt the law. Even though it's legal, you went underneath that rating, but you decided you would haul more than what you know that you're allowed to carry. They are going to pound you. They're probably going to take most of what you have. It's one thing for a person to do this, an individual to do it. The thing that blows my mind, I see companies do it all the time where they will derate a trailer. They'll derate this trailer down and they're hauling a skid steer that weighs 5,000 pounds more than what they're legally required, and they just chance it. Well, that's great until you have an accident. Even getting caught's not that big of a deal. You're just gonna get some tickets. You may have to unhook it and get one of your CDL drivers to come out and get it. At some point, you may have an accident. And when you have an accident and you tear up somebody's personal property or you hurt somebody, just because you didn't want to get that CDL, you wanted to try to find some loophole around it. And I'm not against loopholes, don't get me wrong, but is it worth risking losing your entire business over trying to skimp on the CDL? In my opinion, it's not worth it at all. It's not worth the risk, because unfortunately in the world we live in, people get a little sue happy. If you're going to derate, make sure you stay within the realm of that derate. Make sure you stay in compliance. If you get a little over, don't chance it. Who knows? Somebody pulls out in front of you. It may not even be your fault, and you hit them, and they say, well, you weren't even properly licensed to pull the vehicle. You've had the trailer derated to try to stay under CDL. You were overloaded. When you loaded, you knew you were overloaded. I mean, that's going to be a tough day in the legal system. That could tie up no telling what in your company or personally in a lawsuit. It could cost you no telling how much just to save a little money and to try to get around it. So is derate okay? Absolutely. Do not obtain a CDL if you don't have to, because there's certain things that come along with that you have to go by. You have a different set of rules to go by once you have that CDL. If you like me, if you currently have one, I wouldn't recommend letting it go unless you know for sure that you're never going to use it again. Make sure you know the rules. Make sure you know the law. Do all of your homework, because it could cost you big. It's not just as simple as going and buying that non-CDL trailer from that non-CDL promoted dealer lot that's just trying to make a sale at the end of the day. A lot of dealers are like that. Not all of them. There's some great ones out there. Make sure you have all your ducks in a row. Make sure you're in compliance so that you don't, if you are in an accident, you're not going to lose everything you have just because you tried to skirt it a little bit and you're not compliant. That's all I've got to say about that. I'm sure y'all are going to have a ton to say about that. Just tighten the lug nuts. Make sure if you're derated, you're within the derate. Make sure if you need a CDL, you have your CDL. Make sure that if you're over 26,000 pulling your big fifth wheel for personal use, make sure you've got the Class A if that's what you're required to have, just in case you get into an accident, because that's where you're going to need to cover your butt. DOT is going to be the least of your worries.